Good evening, traveller. Come and sit by the fire. It has been burning quietly for some time now, keeping to itself the way it prefers. The flames rise and fall in slow, steady breaths, as though they understand that tonight is meant for rest. Let your shoulders soften. Let the warmth reach you without effort. You do not need to stay awake for this story. In the magical forest of Whispergrove, listening has never been a requirement. Thoughts are free to wander here. Sleep is always welcome. Tonight's story begins with a gentle arrival. A familiar friend steps out of the trees and into the firelight, carrying a quiet worry and very few words. Something small has been lost in Whispergrove, something meaningful, and help is needed to find it again. This is a story about friendship, patience, and a slow walk through the deeper parts of the forest. A story that does not rush. A story that will wait for you, even if you drift away. If you have sat by this fire before, you may remember the Slokin. If you have not, then allow me to tell you just enough. The Slokin is a being shaped by patience. Tall and broad, with long arms that move carefully as though each motion carries meaning. Its skin looks as though it belongs to the forest itself, layered with textures like bark and stone, softened by patches of moss that seem to grow where they please. It does not speak much. Words come slowly to it, and when they do, they are chosen with great care. Slokin and I have known each other for a long time now, not in days or months, but in shared silence, in unspoken understanding. We have walked the same paths without walking together. We have rested in the same places without needing to explain why. It is the kind of friendship that does not require attention, only presence. That is why, when the forest shifted its weight beyond the circle of firelight that night, I felt no alarm, only recognition. I was tending the embers, listening to their low, steady sound when the air behind me grew fuller. Not colder, not darker, just occupied, as though something large and familiar had arrived and chosen to wait. I did not turn at once. In Whispergrove, it is polite to allow arrivals their own moment. After a time, I spoke softly. "You may come closer," I said. "The fire is gentle tonight." There was a long pause, the kind that might feel uncomfortable elsewhere, but here felt natural. Then came the sound of a single step, heavy yet careful, followed by another. The Slokin emerged slowly from between the trees, stopping at the edge of the fire's warmth. The light touched it unevenly, catching on the curves of its form, settling into the moss along its shoulders and arms. It stood there still and quiet, just as it always had. I smiled. "It is good to see you again," I said. "I wondered when you might return." The Slokin shifted its weight. Its deep-set eyes rested on me, calm and unreadable. Then, after what felt like a great deal of thought, it spoke. "Friend." The word was low and rough, shaped carefully, as though it had travelled a long way before finding its way out. But it was enough. It always was. I rose slowly and stepped closer, stopping where the fire warmed my boots. "You have not come for the warmth alone," I said gently. "Something troubles you." The Slokin did not answer. Instead, it extended one large hand toward me, palm open, empty. I studied it for a moment, then nodded. "You have lost something." The Slokin lowered its head slightly, not in sadness, in agreement. "You want me to help you find it," I said. Another slow nod. "Then show me where you last had it." We left the fire behind without ceremony. It would keep. It always did. The forest opened around us as we walked, roots and stones offering their places without resistance. The slocan led, though only by a little, its steps measured and unhurried. I matched its pace easily. After some time, the trees thinned and the ground dipped gently inward. The air there felt familiar, pressed smooth by repeated visits. I sensed it even before the slocan stopped. "This place matters to you," I said quietly. The slocan knelt and touched the ground, its fingers brushing the moss as though greeting an old friend. Then it stood and stepped aside, allowing me to look more closely. It did not take long to see what it had noticed. Footprints, small ones. They moved away from the clearing in a loose, wandering pattern. Some were clear, others faded where the ground had softened beneath them. They did not speak of haste, only of quiet movement. "You are not the only one who walks gently here," I murmured. The slocan watched me, waiting. "We can follow them," I said, "if you wish." It nodded once. The trail led us into a part of Whispergrove I had not visited before. The trees there grew closer together, their branches weaving overhead in soft, protective arcs. The ground glimmered faintly, marked by pale mushrooms and smooth stones that held a quiet glow of their own. Eventually, the footprints ended at the mouth of a small cave. It was not dark, nor deep. Its entrance curved inward like a resting place shaped slowly by time. Warm light flickered gently from within, and the sounds that reached us were not alarming. They were lively, soft voices, small movements, many beings sharing a space in careful harmony. The slocan paused, uncertainty passing through its stillness. I rested my hand briefly against its arm. "Let us see," I said softly, quietly. Together we stepped inside. The cave opened into a rounded chamber, its walls smooth and pale. Dozens of small creatures moved about within, some feathered, some furred, some shaped like nothing I had ever seen before. They carried bits of stone and leaf, thread and twig, working with gentle focus. And there, resting carefully upon a bed of moss, was the small wooden sculpture the slocan had lost. One of the creatures noticed us and froze. Others followed until the cave grew still. After a moment, a small, round creature stepped forward and lifted the sculpture with both hands. It held it out at once, without hesitation. "For you," it said softly. "We only borrowed it." The slocan exhaled, a deep, relieved sound that settled the air around us. But before we could step forward, the creature added, "There is something we hoped you might help us with." The cave waited. The cave did not feel tense as we waited. It felt attentive. The small creatures did not rush to explain themselves. They shifted softly where they stood, their movements careful, as though they were aware of how sound carried in a shared space. One by one, they stepped aside, opening a narrow path toward the back of the chamber. "Come," the round creature said gently. "We will show you." Slocan did not move at once. It looked to me, then back to the sculpture still held carefully in the creature's hands. I nodded. "We are listening," I said. That was enough. We followed them through a low passage where the stone curved smoothly overhead. The air grew warmer as we went, not hot, but comfortably so, like the memory of sunlight stored in the earth. The ground beneath our feet changed from cool stone to packed soil, softened by time and many careful steps. At the end of the passage, the space widened again. The ceiling lifted just enough to allow us to stand comfortably, and there, resting in the center of the chamber, was the stone. It was larger than I had expected, not jagged or threatening, but old and heavy, rounded by years of stillness. It sat at a slight angle, as though it had shifted only recently, settling into a position it had not meant to take. The small creatures gathered around it, keeping a respectful distance. "It moved," one of them explained. "Only a little, but enough." Slokin stepped closer, placing one large hand against the surface of the stone. It did not push. It simply rested there, listening in its own way. I crouched beside it, feeling the ground with my palm. There was a faint warmth beneath the stone. Not a heat that burned, but one that soothed, the kind that seeps slowly into tired hands and eases them open. "There is something beneath it," I said. The creatures nodded. "It has always been there. It keeps the cave gentle. When the nights grow long, it reminds us to rest." Slokin turned its head slightly, understanding, settling into its posture. "We can help," I said, "but we will not hurry." Slokin straightened and positioned itself carefully beside the stone. It planted its feet wide, steadying its weight. I moved to the other side, placing my hands where the rock curved inward just enough to offer purchase. We did not count. We did not signal. Slokin breathed in, slow and deep, and I matched it without thinking. Together we leaned into the stone, not with force but with patience. The rock resisted at first, as it had every right to do. It had been resting a long time. So we paused. The creatures waited with us, quiet and still. When we tried again, the stone shifted, only slightly, just enough to acknowledge us. We rested once more, letting the movement settle. Again, we leaned. This time, the stone rolled just enough to reveal what lay beneath it. The warmth reached us immediately. Nestled into a shallow hollow in the earth was a cluster of smooth, pale stones. They glowed faintly from within, their light soft and steady, like embers that never faded. I felt the warmth rise into my hands, easing the stiffness from my fingers. The creatures let out a collective breath. "It is awake again," one whispered. Slokin knelt carefully and touched one of the stones, its massive fingers impossibly gentle. The glow brightened slightly beneath its touch, then settled back into a calm rhythm. We left the stone where it rested. It had no desire to be moved further. It had only needed space to breathe again. The small creatures gathered around the hollow, their movements lighter now, their voices warmer. One of them approached Slokin, holding out the wooden sculpture once more. Slokin accepted it with both hands, drawing it close to its chest. Its shoulders eased, tension leaving them in a way that words never could. Another creature approached me, holding a small fragment of the glowing stone. "For you," it said, "to remember this place." I hesitated, then accepted it. The warmth was gentle, steady, and reassuring. We stayed a while longer, sharing quiet company in the cave. No one spoke much. There was nothing left to explain. Eventually, it was time to leave. The creatures escorted us back to the cave entrance, their soft lights fading behind us as we stepped once more into the forest. The night welcomed us without question. We walked together for a long time afterward. The path felt different now. Not changed exactly, but settled, as though something had been returned to its proper place. At the edge of Whispergrove, where our paths always seemed to part, we stopped. "This is where I turn back," I said quietly. Slokin nodded. It held the sculpture carefully, then looked at me, its gaze steady and calm. "Friend," it said again. "Yes," I replied. "Friend." Slokin rested one large hand briefly against my shoulder, solid and warm, as though the moment wished to be remembered. Then it stepped back, turned, and began its slow walk into the forest, its form moving easily between the trees. I watched until it faded from sight, until the forest closed softly behind it and Whispergrove returned to its familiar stillness. Only then did I turn back toward the fire. And that is how the night settled, not with an ending, but with understanding. The fire waits beside you now, its embers glowing low and steady, offering warmth without demand. You are welcome here. There is no need to move on, no need to think of what comes next. You may stay for as long as you wish. Beyond the circle of light, the magical forest of Whispergrove stands quiet and watchful. Nothing stirs with urgency. Nothing asks for your attention. The paths will remain where they are, patient and unchanging, ready whenever you are, not before. If you have not yet drifted into the world of dreams, there is still time. Let the fire keep you company. Let the forest hold the night steady around you. And when sleep arrives, allow it to do so gently. I will remain here a while longer, listening to the embers and the slow breathing of the trees. You are safe to rest. Good night, my friend.